Is faff well understood outside Britain? Google says faff is just British English. Is it well understood in other English-speaking regions? If not, is there an international alternative? Faff. British informal. Verb, faff, third person present, faffs, past tense, faffed, past participle, faffed, gerund or present participle, faffing. Spend time in ineffectual activity. We can't faff around forever. Noun, faff. A great deal of ineffectual activity. There was the usual faff of getting back to the plane.
It appears the expression is still mainly a British one. From the phrase finder. Faffing about is a phrase that is most often heard in the UK rather than in other parts of the English-speaking world. In fact, even in the UK it is something of an anachronism, more at home in A.P.G. Wodehouse story than as 21st century street slang. From Worldwide Words. It's originally British, informal but not rude, and moderately common, especially in the form to faff about. The Daily Telegraph included this on March 15, 2008. The early boarders certainly bagged their seats quickly, but then they immediately relax and happily faff about putting their things in the overhead locker, generally getting in the way of the other passengers. The word started to move into the wider language in its modern sense around the end of the 19th century, though it didn't much appear in print until the 1980s. Famm Wiktionary. Britain, slang, to waste time on an unproductive activity. She faffed about so much, she never got to eat her breakfast. I decided to stop faffing about and get some work done. From one-off Britishisms. The Ben Wyatt I know, I don't think he'd be happy just sitting here faffing around. The Britishism in there is derived from faff, a verb meaning dither or fuss, and is usually followed by about. The Oxford English Dictionary's first citation, from an 1874 volume called Yorkshire Oddities, suggests that it originated as a regionalism. Tea clockmaker ... fizzled and faffed about her, but never did her a farthing's worth of good. Up till now, US use has been spotty, and I don't mean spotty in the English sense. It is a favorite of New York Times sports blogger Jeff Z. Klein, who, covering the 2008 women's soccer matches at the 2008 Olympics, wrote, "Much faffing about as these final minutes tick down. New Zealand have a throw. In deep in the America zone, but the one fern is surrounded by 4 Americans and winds up on her back as they run away with the ball." Klein's use of the plural verb have with the collective New Zealand indicates he has absorbed a bit too much English football coverage, and suggests that faff is still more or less a one-off. As noted by a few users, the expression appears to be commonly used in Australia where it may have found its way in the early days as suggested the phrase finder. From the Australian Journal, 1879. No, a candle, burns quite steadily now. You were right about it faffing about before, because it blew towards my face. Baring Gould's citation locates the phrase amongst the rural working classes and its use in Australia at a time when English speakers in that country were predominantly ex-UK convicts, suggests that the phrase was to be found below rather than above stairs.
I would say it's somewhat common here in Australia, although I am British. It certainly has a lot of results on Google search of Australian websites, such as this gem on the achievements of our great Prime Minister. This URL. Note, this is not a com.au website, but if it equals Australian Financial Review.
This is a well-used and understood phrase in South Africa, so is arsing around. We also say stop standing around looking pretty. An American equivalent would be goofing off or fooling about.
The word faff and related phrases are commonly used in Ireland. Here's an example of a newspaper article from earlier this year which uses the term faffing in its headline.
It would be understood, even though it's not commonly used. As a Canadian, I've heard the term, and similar phrases like fanny about, mostly on British TV shows. Some British shows, Top Gear, Downton Abbey, Doctor Who, Chi, etc., are popular here, so even though Canadians and Americans rarely use the terms, many people would know them. In the verb form, there's a context clue, because Xing around and Xing about are almost snow clones. If I say that I'm dicking around, puttering around, goofing around, farting around, screwing around, messing around, etc., people know that I'm engaged in idle/wasteful activity, even if they've never heard that particular variant before.